Hey everybody, Siggy, the Icelandic triathlete here, and welcome to today's video. It's going to be a little bit different today, not a typical kind of training day. We're going to be doing some metabolic testing on the bike, just to find out really how my metabolic parameters have evolved since I last did these tests, and if the training has been doing the right kind of things we would expect. I've had some breakfast this morning, so I'm not completely fasted like I sometimes am when I'm doing these tests. So that's going to impact the fat burning a little bit, but we're going to see how this turns out. Pretty simple in that regard. We start pretty easy and then we go, step by step every 5 minutes, increasing the wattage by 30 watts. And yeah, just like seeing how I'm going to be performing at close to the race power, because this is going to feed into the nationals that are in just 7 days. So next Saturday we do the Icelandic nationals in Olympic distance at Hleðsla, and this is going to be a key factor here in determining the heart rate and the power, and also the nutrition. How many carbohydrates I am actually consuming at a given heart rate or a given race output, and so yeah, how many gels I should be taking in on the bike before the run in order not to burn myself completely out. A little bit heavier this morning than I usually am, about 76.5 kilos. Just day-to-day form, I guess, but yeah, we'll feed that into the calculations. So yeah, let's just start this thing.
Look at that, 80.6 VO2 max. I was just flatlining there at the end, so it's just completely unsustainable, but that was good. Metabolic profile is looking really good, so we'll have a look at that in just a moment. I'm just going to spin a little bit down.
So there you have it. Always nice to do these kind of tests. The pain is always quite something to behold. But yeah, now let's look at the results. I mean, we did this mainly to find out the zones, or at least revise the zones in terms of the heart rate, and as well find out, this weekend what kind of an effort or power I could maintain for the Olympic distance on the bike. So that's like an hour effort. It's 45-kilometer riding, so hour and 5 minutes maybe. But the number everybody is looking for always is the VO2 max. That's of course that's an important number, but it's not everything. And as you can see here, it's getting up to the 80 milliliters per minute per kilogram. Which is around the same as I've usually been when in pretty good shape. So it's nice to at least see the numbers being the same there. This is achieved at around 161 beats per minute heart rate. So my heart barely moves on the bike. So this is essentially my maximum heart rate is maybe 165 beats per minute in the TT. So it's but still nice to see. Now, when determining the zones, I usually look at two things: my breathing and fuel partitioning. So how much fat am I burning? How many carbohydrates am I burning? And if we look at the first thing here, we can see the blue dotted line is my respiratory rate. So like how fast am I breathing? And if we draw like lines, black lines from this here, we can see that there is this linear relationship almost. So we have these inflection points here, and we can make them a little bit clearer here. So at the first one, we see it happening about 120, 125 beats per minute. So this would be what we would call the first ventilatory threshold in a way. VT1, LT1, if I were measuring the lactate, this would be the LT1. So this is essentially the highest point in my easy training. And this corresponds to about 220 to 230 watts if I were doing a long steady ride outdoors. There comes an inflection point, and we can see here the second one happens a few moments later, around 138 to 142 beats per minute. And then we have another one here where the breathing kind of just shoots up, and this is where I become really unsustainable. So if I were to do an all-out 30-minute and up to a 50-60 minute effort, this would probably be the heart rate I would stabilize at. So this is just under the point of being completely unsustainable. However, with this point here, this is usually correlated to what we would call the LT2, or the maximum lactate steady state. So if I were doing a half an Ironman, or like we say a tempo interval sub-threshold, that would be this heart rate here. So this, if I again extrapolate to something outdoors, this would be around 335 up to 350 watts, depending on how fresh I am that day. So for the Olympic distance, it probably is wise to stabilize at about 140, 142 beats per minute in the race. But we'll have to look at the fuel partitioning as well to see how many carbohydrates I'm actually burning at this heart rate, and if that's really sustainable given the energy consumption. So here we see the fuel partitioning. Nice, good fat oxidation rates here. You can see the orange line, and then the carbohydrates here pretty stable and low at the beginning, and then we see them shoot up pretty dramatically here towards the end. But what we're really looking at and looking for here is the point where the fat oxidation rates start to go a little bit down, and usually this is at the same time as we see the breathing rates start to increase a little bit. So again, if we divide this into these three zones, we can see at 125 beats per minute, this is exactly at this point where the fat starts to drop. So this is essentially what I would call my zone 1. I usually like to simplify things, at least for myself, use only 3 zones. So zone 1 would be 80% of the time, just really easy training, and then I'm using zone 2, or at least the upper end of zone 2 a little bit more now than I'm using zone 3, because that's more like the intensity I'm going to be racing at. So Olympic distance race is going to be right at the limit here for the red line, where you can see the 146 beats per minute. But yeah, sometimes this point here can be a little bit fuzzy, depending on where you want to locate it. I want to go just when I divide these 2 zones, I go between the point where we saw the second inflection point in the breathing and the third one. So between the 42 beats per minute and the 153. So 146, give or take. That's the dividing line there. But if we look again at the fuel consumption, this is the heart rate that I can see I'm probably going to be able to maintain, given my lactate and the breathing rates. Here I'm burning about 22 kilocalories per minute of carbohydrates, and this is about 1,300 calories. I'm probably going to be consuming about 300 calories on the bike, so that's going to be 1,000 calories lost essentially in 1 hour, and that's probably at the upper end of what's sustainable for a 2-hour race roughly. So I think for the bike, I have my plan here pretty solid. So my upper limit in power will be about 340 watts, but I'm going to limit myself to 140 142, 143 beats per minute heart rate, because if I go much above that, we can see that, you know, it becomes really unsustainable here. And when the carbohydrates shoot this much up, you can only maintain that for a certain amount of time. So all in all, pretty good. And now it's just rest and recovery until then. At least after today, we have one race left to do. It's a brick race this afternoon. Yeah, and then it's just rest and recovery until Saturday. So thanks again for watching. I'll be, you know, making a video about the race course and my race planning maybe on Friday before the race. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the next one.